Welcome back, everyone. It feels like just yesterday we were starting our deep dive into Ruhi Book 8, and now we're already on Unit 3.
I know, right? Time flies when you're exploring the intricacies of the Baha'i administrative order.
It certainly does. And this unit is a big one, the Universal House of Justice. It feels like we're reaching the peak of a mountain, ready to take in a panoramic view.
It's definitely a culmination of all that we've explored so far, from the individual's spiritual journey to the dynamics of community life. And now we get to delve into the institution that guides and unifies the global Baha'i community.
That's a good point. It's like each unit builds upon the last, kind of laying the foundation for this deeper understanding. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's take a moment to really appreciate the significance of what we're talking about. I mean, we're talking about a global institution elected by representatives from around the world that's tasked with guiding humanity towards a brighter future.
It's pretty awe-inspiring when you think about it that way, and I think one of the best ways to capture that sense of awe is to revisit that incredible cablegram sent by the Hands of the Cause upon the election of the Universal House of Justice.
Oh, you mean the one that starts with, "To jubilation, entire Baha'i, world victorious completion."
That's the one. Every time I read it, I get chills. It's like we're transported back to that moment in 1963, witnessing the fulfillment of Baha'u'llah's vision and the culmination of Shoghi Effendi's tireless efforts.
It really puts things into perspective, doesn't it? I mean, we often hear about the pivotal role Shoghi Effendi played, but that cablegram truly captures the weight of his legacy and the seamless transition to the Universal House of Justice.
And the incredible responsibility that then fell on the shoulders of the Hands of the Cause to guide the community through that transition, following Shoghi Effendi's passing.
Right, navigating that period of grief and uncertainty, all while laying the groundwork for the election of the Universal House of Justice. It must have been an immense undertaking.
Absolutely. A delicate balance of leading with strength and sensitivity, and then to witness the Universal House of Justice finally elected, guiding the community forward. It's almost like seeing prophecy come to life.
It truly is, and I think it's important to hold on to that sense of awe as we dive deeper into this unit, remembering that we're not just talking about an administrative structure. We're talking about an institution that Shoghi Effendi described as the last refuge of a tottering civilization.
Powerful words, aren't they? And more relevant than ever in today's world, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. But what does it actually mean for the Universal House of Justice to be a refuge?
Well, I think it's about more than just protection. It's about guidance, inspiration, and a sense of purpose. In a world filled with so much uncertainty and turmoil, the Universal House of Justice offers a clear vision for a better future and a path for how to get there.
So it's like a beacon of hope, illuminating the way forward. And that vision isn't limited to the Baha'i community, right?
No, not at all. It's a vision for all of humanity, a blueprint for a world where unity, justice, and peace prevail.
Which is precisely why Shoghi Effendi, also called the Universal House of Justice, the supreme organ of the Baha'i Commonwealth. It's the head of the faith, the ultimate source of guidance for the Baha'i community as it works towards that global vision.
Right. And when we talk about the head of the faith, it's not about blind obedience.
Yeah, we're not talking about a dictatorship here.
Yeah.
So how does that work then, this relationship between the Universal House of Justice and the individual believer?
Well, it's a relationship built on trust, respect, and a shared commitment to the betterment of humanity. The Universal House of Justice provides the framework, the vision, the guiding principles, but it's up to individuals and communities to apply those principles in a way that's relevant to their own context.
So it's about empowering us, not controlling us, right?
Exactly. Think of it like this. The Universal House of Justice is like a master architect designing the blueprint for a magnificent edifice, and we, the individual believers and communities, are the builders, bringing that blueprint to life in all its diversity and beauty.
I like that analogy. It emphasizes that each of us has a role to play and that our contributions are valued. And this makes me think of something else we've discussed before about the importance of the independent investigation of truth.
Absolutely. We're not expected to blindly accept anything, even from the Universal House of Justice. We're encouraged to study the writings, ponder their meaning, and consult with each other.
So ultimately, our obedience stems from a deep understanding of the wisdom and justice of the guidance provided, not from blind faith or coercion.
Exactly. And I think that's a really important point to emphasize because it speaks to the heart of what it means to be a Baha'i.
It's about aligning our will with the divine will as expressed through this divinely inspired institution, trusting that even when we don't fully understand the reasoning behind a particular piece of guidance, there's a higher wisdom at work.
Right. And that trust is something we cultivate over time as we see how the guidance of the Universal House of Justice leads to the progress and unity of the Baha'i community and the advancement of civilization itself.
And that makes me wonder, how does the Universal House of Justice actually receive that divine guidance? How can 9 individuals, however wise and dedicated, serve as a conduit for the will of God? It's a question that I'm definitely grappling with as we continue this deep dive.
That's an incredibly profound question, and I think it's one that this unit will help us explore in more depth. It's about understanding that the Universal House of Justice isn't just a group of individuals making decisions based on their own limited understanding. They're engaged in a process of deep consultation, seeking to align their collective will with the divine will.
So it's about tapping into a higher source of wisdom, transcending individual limitations, and accessing a realm of knowledge and understanding that's beyond our ordinary comprehension.
Exactly. And I think there's a lot we can learn from that process as individuals, as we strive to cultivate that same capacity for spiritual perception in our own lives.
It's fascinating to think about, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And keep in mind, we've only just begun to scratch the surface. There's so much more to discover about the Universal House of Justice, its role in guiding the Baha'i community and humanity as a whole, and its profound impact on the world around us.
There's a whole universe to uncover, and I'm excited to continue exploring it together.
Me too. And I'm sure our listeners are just as eager to delve deeper. Picking up where we left off, I think that question of how the Universal House of Justice receives divine guidance is really at the heart of this whole unit, and it's something I find myself coming back to again and again.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, you have 9 individuals elected from all over the world, each with their own unique backgrounds and perspectives, and yet they come together as one unified body to guide this global community. How do they do that?
Well, the materials really highlight the crucial role of consultation, but it's not just about expressing individual opinions or engaging in, like a debate. It's about deep listening, seeking understanding, and really striving for unity.
So more collaboration than competition.
Exactly. And this collaborative spirit extends beyond the 9 members themselves. They actively seek input from individuals and institutions throughout the Baha'i world, gathering information and perspectives from a wide range of sources.
That's incredible. So it's not a top-down approach. It's more like this vast interconnected network where knowledge and insights are flowing from the grassroots to the apex and back again.
Precisely. And that interconnectedness is so vital because it allows for a diversity of voices and perspectives to be considered. Remember, the Universal House of Justice isn't just concerned with making decisions that benefit the Baha'i community. They're striving to guide humanity as a whole towards a brighter future.
Which means taking into account the complexities of a world that's incredibly diverse, both culturally and ideologically. But then how do they balance that need for unity and coherence in their guidance? I mean, how do they ensure that their decisions are just and fair for everyone, even when those decisions might not align with individual preferences?
That's a really important point. The materials really emphasize that justice is a core principle guiding the decisions of the Universal House of Justice. It's not just about finding compromise or appeasing the majority. It's about upholding the highest standards of fairness and equity in every decision.
And this is where that trust in divine guidance comes in, right?
Exactly. Remember what we were talking about earlier about the Universal House of Justice being a refuge? That sense of refuge isn't just for individuals, it's for the whole Baha'i community. It's that assurance that even when faced with complex challenges, there's a guiding hand at work leading us towards a just and equitable outcome.
Like a safety net, knowing that even when things get messy or confusing, there's a higher wisdom guiding the process.
Precisely. And that trust in divine guidance, it's not blind faith. It's rooted in a deep understanding of the Baha'i teachings and the historical record of the faith. We've seen time and time again how the Universal House of Justice has navigated some seemingly insurmountable challenges, leading the community through periods of rapid growth and social transformation.
And each time emerging with greater unity and strength, it really is a testament to the power of this institution and the impact it has on the lives of individuals and communities all over the world.
It is. Speaking of impact, we've been focusing a lot on the spiritual and moral guidance provided by the Universal House of Justice. But what about its practical role in shaping the community's global endeavors? How does it translate these lofty visions into concrete actions?
That's what I'm really curious about. This is where we start to see the Universal House of Justice, not just as a source of inspiration, but as a driving force for social change. And one of the key tools they use to do this are the global plans.
Right. These plans are like roadmaps for the entire Baha'i community, outlining priorities, strategies, and goals for a specific period of time. And what's really remarkable is that they're developed through this incredibly consultative process involving input from individuals, communities, and institutions across the globe.
It's like a massive brainstorming session where everyone gets to contribute their ideas and insights.
Exactly. And then the Universal House of Justice takes all of that input and synthesizes it into this coherent plan that reflects the collective aspirations of the whole Baha'i world. It's a remarkable feat of planning and strategic thinking.
And these plans aren't just static documents, are they? They evolve and adapt based on the changing needs of the community and the world.
Absolutely. The Universal House of Justice is constantly monitoring the progress of each plan, gathering feedback, and making adjustments as needed. It's a very dynamic process reflecting that principle of an evolving administration that we talked about earlier.
Which brings us back to this whole concept of a culture of learning that was mentioned in the materials. Can we unpack that a bit more? How does this culture of learning show up in the way the Baha'i community engages with the guidance of the Universal House of Justice?
It's all about approaching guidance not as a set of rigid rules to be followed blindly, but as a framework for learning and growth. It's about studying the messages of the Universal House of Justice with an open heart and mind, reflecting on their meaning, and really striving to understand the principles behind them.
So it's not just about absorbing information. It's about actively engaging with it, questioning it, reflecting on it, and applying it to our own lives and communities.
Exactly. And this process of learning isn't limited to individuals. It extends to communities, institutions, and even the Universal House of Justice itself. This institution is constantly learning and evolving as well, refining its approaches based on experience and feedback.
So it's like this beautiful cycle of learning and growth where everyone is contributing to the advancement of knowledge and the betterment of society.
Yeah.
And it's all guided by that wisdom and vision of the Universal House of Justice.
And underpinned by that essential trust in divine guidance. That's what allows us to navigate challenges with resilience and to approach the task of building a better world with hope.
It's such a powerful reminder that even amidst all the complexity and uncertainty of our time, there's a higher purpose at work. And it's up to each of us to align ourselves with that purpose, both individually and collectively.
And that alignment begins with understanding the role of the Universal House of Justice, its relationship to the community, and its vision for humanity.
It's about recognizing that this institution isn't just some administrative body. It's a source of inspiration, guidance, and empowerment.
And its impact extends far beyond the boundaries of the Baha'i community, touching the lives of countless people of all faiths and backgrounds.
It's really amazing to consider the scope of the Universal House of Justice's influence. We've been talking about global plans, a culture of learning, this evolving administration. But how does all of this translate into action? Like, what does it look like on the ground in the daily lives of Baha'is around the world?
Right. It's one thing to discuss these lofty concepts, but another to see them actually playing out in neighborhoods and villages and cities across the globe.
Exactly. So how does that guidance from the Universal House of Justice actually manifest in local communities?
Well, one of the key things the materials highlight is the role of those local spiritual assemblies, those elected governing councils. They play a vital role in implementing the guidance of the Universal House of Justice at the community level.
So it's like a chain of connection. The Universal House of Justice provides the overall vision, and then those spiritual assemblies adapt and apply that vision to their specific context.
Precisely. And it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. The Universal House of Justice encourages flexibility and creativity, trusting those local communities to find the best ways to implement that guidance based on their circumstances.
That makes a lot of sense. After all, what works in a bustling city might not work in a rural village. But how do those spiritual assemblies actually put those global plans into action? What kinds of activities are we talking about?
Well, the range is vast and constantly evolving, but some common threads you see include organizing devotional gatherings, setting up those educational programs for children and youth, promoting social action initiatives, and fostering interfaith dialogue.
It sounds like a very holistic approach,
Yeah.
addressing spiritual, educational, and social needs of the community.
Exactly. And it's all driven by that desire to contribute to the betterment of society, to create that world where justice, unity, and peace prevail. And speaking of contributing to the betterment of society, one thing that really stood out to me in the materials is that emphasis the Universal House of Justice places on engaging with a wider world.
Oh, absolutely. It's not just about creating a haven for Baha'is. It's about sharing those Baha'i principles and collaborating with others to address those challenges that are facing humanity as a whole.
Precisely. And that engagement can take so many forms, from participating in interfaith dialogues and social action initiatives to offering perspectives on global issues, like through scholarly articles and presentations.
It's about being an active citizen and contributing your unique perspectives and talents to this collective effort of building a better world.
Absolutely. And doing it with that same spirit of unity and collaboration that we see reflected in the functioning of the Universal House of Justice itself.
Which brings us back to that core concept of obedience. We've talked about how obedience in the Baha'i Faith isn't blind submission. It's about aligning our will with the divine will, as it's expressed through this divinely inspired institution. But what does that actually look like on a practical level? How do we strive to live in accordance with the guidance of the Universal House of Justice as individuals?
Well, it's really a lifelong process of learning, reflection, and action. It starts with studying the writings, deepening our understanding of the Baha'i teachings, and seeking clarity on the guidance provided by the Universal House of Justice.
It's not passive. It's actively engaging with the material, almost wrestling with the concepts and trying to internalize them.
Exactly. And then comes that crucial step of translating that understanding into action.
Yeah,
It's about finding ways to apply those Baha'i principles to your daily life, your relationships, your work, your service to the community.
So a holistic endeavor touching every aspect of life, and not about reaching perfection overnight, but striving for continuous growth.
Exactly. And that striving is made so much easier by the knowledge that we're not alone in this journey. We have the support of this global community, guided by the wisdom and vision of the Universal House of Justice.
Such a powerful reminder that even in the midst of all the complexity and challenges we face today, there's this guiding light leading us toward a brighter future.
And it's up to each of us to walk that path with courage, humility, and unwavering hope.
Well, I think that just about wraps up our deep dive into Ruhi Book 8, Unit 3. This has been an incredibly enriching experience exploring the role of the Universal House of Justice in such depth.
It really has. It's been a pleasure sharing these reflections with you. I hope our listeners have found it insightful as well.
Me too. And as you continue your study of Ruhi Book 8, I hope you keep those questions coming. Keep reflecting, keep learning, and most importantly, keep putting those learnings into action. Until next time.